Okay, so thank you so much to everyone for being here today. We are so excited for you to join us for our restaurant marketing and social media webinar. I'm excited to be having this conversation today with Gordon Food Service. Given all of the shelter in place that's happening right now, folks are spending more and more time across the country staying at home, so digital content has become a more important conversation than ever. My name is Claudia Saric. I work for Relish Works. So if you are unfamiliar with Relish, we are Gordon Food Service's innovation hub located in Chicago, Illinois. I help run strategic partnerships and external engagement for Relish. So this is a very relevant conversation today. I'm really excited to have three amazing panelists joining me for this conversation. I'm going to start introducing them. The first is Lisa Speck. Lisa is a senior analytics translator at Gongos and has over a decade of experience in agency roles within the insights industry. Do you want to give us a hi, Lisa?
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. The next is Melissa Schreiber. Melissa is the founder of Insight 42, which is a digital communications firm focused on building creative strategies that define and elevate brands, and she is based in the Detroit, Michigan area. Melissa, give us a hi and a hello.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have Kelly Smallegan-Mass. Kelly is an experienced marketing and communications leader. She currently heads the newly formed North American digital marketing team at Gordon Food Service headquarters in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Kelly, want to say hi?
Hey, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. I'm also really excited that this is an all-female panel. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping before I kick it over to Lisa. Please keep asking questions in the Q&A box below. If you can't find it, you just take your cursor and you scroll it along the bottom of the screen and it'll pop up there. I will try to get to as many questions as I possibly can, but I might not get through all, but I will try, I promise. Brief overview of the agenda today. We're going to start with a presentation from Lisa. So Lisa's going to share some consumer data from her firm Gongos and what she's learning about when it comes to consumer sentiment and opinions surrounding the restaurant reemergence and the crisis today. We're then going to move over to Melissa, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about how these consumer behaviors and sentiments relate to a restaurant's communication strategy more broadly. Finally, we're going to then have Kelly take that communication strategy and give us some actual tips and tactical examples of how restaurants are implementing these strategies in the field right now. And I have to say, as somebody that helps manage Relish's social media and is looking through Gordon Food Services all the time, I am so impressed with what I'm seeing right now from restaurant operators and how you guys are staying engaged with your customers and communities. So let's keep the momentum going. Okay, Lisa, I'm going to hand it over to you now so you can start your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Claudia.
Yeah. So Lisa, you launched a microsite for COVID-19. Tell us a little bit more about that and some of the consumer behaviors that we're seeing right now.
Absolutely. So when COVID hit the US, we started tracking consumer sentiments just to keep a pulse on how people were feeling and, you know, what they were thinking about the new norm or if things were going to go back to normal. As well, we've been mining some behavioral data by Disco to really see what's going on with people's online habits and behavior and what can we learn from that along the way. And if we look at the data shows us people are frustrated today. They are anxious, they have anxiety, but they are optimism. They are optimistic, they're looking forward to the hope in the future and what's there for them. And even recently, we started to see this idea of loneliness trending upwards. So people have been locked in their homes, they are feeling the loneliness, even if they're there with other household members, they're looking for that companionship outside of their homes. And we see people really are concerned with the economy, the country, and the world as a whole. And right now, most of them are saying there will be a new normal. They do not think things are going to go back to exactly how they were before. People have picked up habits and routines, and some of those are going to stick with them, and some of them aren't. So if we look for a minute at how this looks for the restaurant industry, 71% have eliminated going out to eat. Not surprising. There's mandates, there's restrictions, there's things that are going on. But 46% of that 71 are actually increasing their takeout and delivery. They're saying, I'm trying, I'm going out there, I'm doing this. And what does that mean for the future? And what are they saying? Well, the restaurant industry is actually ahead of the curve in terms of consumer sentiment and when they want to return to things. So what you can see here in the yellow is the restaurant industry. People are saying less than 1 month, 1 to 3 months, they're ready. They're ready to get out of their homes. They're ready for that companionship. They're ready to get back out. And these other places like air travel, sporting events, concerts, they are going to look to restaurants and probably take cues into what they are doing as they start to, reopen their businesses as well. So what we're looking at here is some actual data from online behavioral data. So this is people that are hitting different websites. And it's really interesting because we're starting to see big upticks in people going to restaurant websites right now. So here's just a few of them on the screen, but you can see like the very top one with Chipotle, like they are seeing an increase greater than they were seeing at the beginning of January. And when we look back at like, what do people want from companies right now? The majority of them are saying, I want companies to help me feel safe and secure. They want companies to be transparent and to demonstrate accountability, and that means talking about where you're sourcing things or what you're doing to make sure that your restaurants are cleanly. And that's all going to aid to their safety and security here. And what they're not looking for in the moment, and let's keep in mind, this is changing on a daily basis. Mandates, restrictions, everything's changing. But right now, consumers are not necessarily asking for authentic experiences and pushing the envelope with technology. What they really want is they want things that are going to aid in that safety and security and that feeling. And there's a lot of different things that you can do here, but I think it's important to keep in mind that the way that people are feeling is different across different states. It's different areas, different regions. And you really have to understand who your core customer is and understand what those sentiments are and keeping a pulse on them. And that's what I've got.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate that. Is this site available for restaurant operators to use right now and to take a look at? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It absolutely is. So on the screen right now, you should see it's covid19story.gongos.com. And it's available for anybody to go take a look at. There's several different chapters out there. There's consumer sentiments, as well as our food and cooking chapter, and some of the data that I just shared will actually be live on May 26th. So you guys got a little preview into that today.
Ah, excellent. VIP experience. So great. And I will also send that link around after the event. So we'll do a follow-up email with all these links. So if anybody misses it, I will make sure to include it. Thanks so much, Lisa. We are going to move over to Melissa now. Melissa, if you want to share screen. Okay, awesome. So Melissa, tell us a little bit more about how we can take some of these consumer behaviors and turn them into a broader strategy and what restaurant operators start thinking about.
Yeah, thanks, Claudia. I'm going to start by moving forward and taking a lot of that data that Lisa has and really translating into how does that affect who you are as a brand? What does that mean? And I spend a lot of time with brands just simply helping them be more human. And that takes actually a lot of effort because we're not logos anymore. We take pride in our logos, but people don't really care about them. They care about the people who are leading the teams, the people who are working for those companies. And so listening to your customers, listening to the data that Lisa has, it really allows you to be relatable and it allows you to be more human in a time like this. A recent survey was done by Edelman, and it said that 71% of responders agreed that during a time like this, they would, if they perceive a brand as putting profit over people, then they will lose trust in that brand forever. It's such a big statement. I mean, people are really putting their hearts on the line here and trusting you know, the companies that they always thought that they loved, and they're finding out who these brands are. And why that's important is because you have to protect who you are as a brand. There are some examples later in the presentation that we'll talk through, but this is going to make a key difference for everybody to understand who you are. And, you know, you talk about who you are, you cannot just say it. You have to prove it. It's really important that you live the life that you say that you're going to live, because people are online now more than ever, and they're researching now more than ever. And they have a lot of inputs. So people are not just looking at branding as branding, they're looking at it as the livelihood of your company and where you are and if you're going to survive. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Oh, sorry. So this is a great quote. And it came out right when we started to learn about COVID. It's from the global head of Twitter Next, and their job, Twitter Next, actually helps companies innovate themselves as brands. It's not just about looking at what others are doing and copying that. It's about understanding the unique role your brand plays in people's lives, how that has changed, and how your brand can help or be useful during this crisis. It's also about looking for opportunities to lead by example. I'm going to talk a lot about that, living your brand, and to do the right thing when it makes sense for your brand. So when we start to talk about what that really means, have a couple of guidelines here, and it's really how to avoid PTSD after COVID. How do you set yourself up for success in a time of crisis? Really, it's simple. Don't try to look good, just be good. Really act the way that you want your brand to be. And I think a lot of times for a lot of those who are running their restaurants or in positions where they really started something based in who they were or what their dreams were, what their ideals were, it's time to get back to that. It's time to take a second, step back, and really focus on who you are as a company, why you started, why you're doing this. Prove it. Prove who you are at this time, and be timely, show sensitivity, and be deliberate. The timely thing is extremely important. It's not just being on time, it's listening and reacting. So listening is a big component of all this. Becoming more human. Like I said in the beginning, brands are not logos anymore. They're people, and they're online, they're on display. And we're taught at an early age, I don't know if any of you guys remember this, but we were taught the 6 C's of education. It's all around well-being, and we forget some of those as adults and as owners and CEOs. But why don't we go back to some of these core elements and make sure that we're really standing up for our brand? So we came up with the 6 C's of brand connecting, and I'm going to walk through this really quickly. But these are things that we are seeing leaders talk about at this time. We're seeing employees need. And we're watching some of the ebbs and flows of the industry based on these 6 C's. Start with cultural context. Start with Lisa's work and the things that you're learning. Stay abreast of all of the different cultural nuances that are happening right now. And if you don't, you can be perceived as tone deaf. Consistency. People are looking for some kind of normalcy, so don't disappoint them. You need to show up and stay consistent at a time like this. Remember, there's lots and lots of noise out there. So consistency really means quality over quantity. It doesn't mean move faster, say more. It means listen more and be more prescriptive. Build communities right now, not followers. Keep your followers at this time, and that the rest will come. Creativity. Don't be like the others, be more like you. There was an example that Claudia and I were talking about a week ago, and it was a coffee shop, and they do tarot card readings to some of their the people who come and frequent the coffee shop, and they've moved online now on social media, and they do those tarot card readings on social. That's such a great example of a company staying true to who they are and being creative online and offline. But if you're a brand that has never done tarot card readings, it's not a good idea to jump into spaces that don't fit you or don't become you. So it's important not to copy what other people are doing, but to really look at who you are and brainstorm different ways to bring that to life online right now. Being considerate, that's really, that's key. And all of you guys know that right now, but it's at such a heightened level that it's worth discussing. And I think one key element of this, if anything, is don't talk about yourself. Ask questions, ask, what do you need right now? How can I help you? Let's talk. What are you doing that I can contribute to? And always lead with empathy. It's difficult for some of these larger brands, trust me, that have CEOs talking and they're they're showcasing what they're making at this time. So there's actually an advantage to being smaller at this point. You're more nimble, you're able to truly speak from your heart, and you're able to define what that means. And then a collaboration. Don't do all the talking. You don't need to. You need other people to help. And going back to what Lisa said, people are lonely. People are looking for that connection, and they're looking for others to make a connection. So let other voices have some of those conversations on your behalf. One of my clients is Buddy's Pizza, and I just think they're doing such an amazing job of collaborating with influencers right now who truly love their pizza and have been talking about them for a long time. They reached out to all of those ladies and gentlemen and said, hey guys, we want to do something with you. And they brainstormed with all of their influencers and came to the table with some really great ideas. And then cadence. So if you don't have data to tell you how often you should post, when you should post, it's okay. You just start doing it, and then you start tracking benchmarks. But I would recommend highly to start slowly. And Kelly's going to give you more tips and tricks on some of this a little bit later on. But organically, don't overwhelm yourself or your audiences. Again, people want to know that you're consistent, so make sure you have time to be consistent. Here's a couple quick examples of some fun brands that are doing things well. Like I said, take a second to go out there, research, go on other people's Instagram channels, find out what they're doing, because people are having fun with this when they want to go out there with their heart and they want to communicate what they mean, and how to do that is to really relate. So this is No Name. If you guys haven't heard of them, they're a fantastic brand. They're one of my favorites. They started with on social doing the 20-second hand washing timer. It's fun, it's quick. Buddies, like I said, they're jumping into like the quarantine house and leaning in on loyalists, people who really care about them, and those who have frequently visited them and know who they are. Reebok, I love this example. While people are staying at home, tell us what equipment you have and we'll customize that workout for you. Guys, they've been doing that on a regular basis. It's so cool to say what you have or what you don't have and then get customizable feedback from a brand within a week. This is something else that I think is really fun, another really great brand. And you can see what they did. They're really rooted in being clean and having great ingredients. They stuck with that look and feel. The only thing that they changed up is they added more humans to their photos. And they've also added a phone number, which is very personal. Text this number and find out what's really in your food. And I wanted to show you this too, because the gentleman holding up the pad, he actually is their community manager. And highlighting your community manager, people who are talking for your brand, employees, is such a great idea right now. Giving credit to employees. Ford Motor Company, as you guys know, formed a lot of what they're doing into making masks. That was an employee concept and idea. Same with GM. And so just giving credit where credit is due. And then also, again, you can see influencers, people who really do love the brand. They collaborated to do a bingo online, a little bit like that tarot card reading, just having fun with some of the stuff you're doing. And then here's something that I thought was extremely interesting. If you're not humble, you'll be called out. Amazon, I know, is the behemoth. Everyone's looking at them and trying to figure out what they're doing. They have profited so much from what's going on, and that is not a good look. And in the beginning, they were a little bit slower to react to this, but you can see they've changed completely the way that they're moving and the way that they're reacting. So all of that profit is actually going to be moving forward, being transferred from the profits of the shareholders to those who are employees and customers and communities. So they are truly choosing PR over profits at this time. And there's lots of different ways that people can do that, even if you're not Amazon. Well-being, brand life. So this is the last thing I will leave you with before handing it over to Kelly, but it's truly, how do you as a leader, somebody who has a stake in your company, really move forward in the new normal? How do you live your brand? What does brand life mean? A couple of things. It's defined by the values and the mission that you brought to the table when you first started this, when you first signed up for what you're doing. You can't just talk about them. You will show people by living them and embodying those things. This is really important right now, guys, but be a spokesperson for young and woke employees who they just don't need this right now, right? There's a lot of data out there that are showing this. This is impacting the way between 20 and 30, people will be moving differently, acting differently, behaving differently, and they're going to be looking at CEOs and leaders much differently. Take a second, forecast the future, and test it with others. You're not in this alone. There's a lot of support, and Claudia is going to talk more and more about that support that Gordon has for everybody here, but you're not in it alone. Use the resources. There are more resources out there for small business than ever before. And of course, you better make that cash flow. It's a new twist on cash flow. It's cash flow that helps to preserve who you are. You want to continue moving forward, and the best way to do that is to be conservative and keep moving forward. Again, this is just the new way of life, and a lot of people are embracing it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. That was so interesting. A question actually came through the question box while you were talking that I'm going to read off because it's, you know, we're still in line here.
Yep.
As restaurant owners see major challenges with labor, how would you recommend they manage their brand and voice? So you were saying it takes a lot of time to be human and a lot of effort to find that human voice. Where would you recommend they get started?
Start with your leadership. Absolutely. Just track out. I do a workshop, it's called ID Me. And what we do is we find the 3 key topics that really develop like who you want your brand to be, and then set up what that might look like. Ideate on those 3 key topics. One of them, if they are employees, I know there's a lack of resources at this time, but redeploying your employees, making sure that if they have something to say or if they have ideas, use employees to help contribute to those concepts and those ideas for who your brand is. I promise you, there's a lot of people out there who want to have a voice and do have ideas. They're kind of watching the world and taking in a lot of information. So yeah,
it's so true. And then my final question for you is for the restaurant operators that might have their doors closed right now or just dipping their toes into reemergence, how do they think about how they tell their story? Because that's maybe a little bit more challenging than the ones that are, you know, actually doing more takeaway, or they're in a state that's maybe, you know, allowing 50% capacity or whatever it may be. How do you think through that? Or how should they think through that?
Yep. Go back to the first 2 words of this presentation, which is protect, improve. Talk about why you closed your doors, who you're protecting, what that means to you, what that means to your community. Give examples, showcase, you know, people at home being safe. And that's something, closing your doors is something that is going to be in the end a good thing if you can come from this and reemerge and tell your story of why and where your heart was. And then prove when you start to reopen, prove that you're there and you're stronger than ever and you're going to give it a go. And we're all in this together. We want to see optimism. We want to see brands succeed. People want to go back to their favorite restaurant. So prove who you are in every little detail when you reopen, and talk about your story.
Yeah, I love that. That's why we love restaurants, right? It gives us a sense
Yes,
of community, and it lets
that's
us
right.
interact with people that we love and we get to know so well. Okay, thanks so much, Melissa. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Kelly, I'm going to hand it over to you now to take that communication strategy and show us some examples in the real world of what you are seeing.
Perfect. Give me 1 second here.
Oh, and while Kelly's setting up, there's a lot of questions coming through about if folks can see this afterwards. So there will be a recording posted shortly after we finish this on the Eat.News website, and it'll also be on the our RelishWorks YouTube channel. I will send around a link for everybody afterwards. So
Awesome. Thank you. Wow, that's all I can say for those of you who are operators in the industry right now. First of all, major props to you. You are amazing, and we can't even begin to understand the difficulties that you faced. And one of those difficulties is digital transformation, right? So let's think back long ago, 3 months maybe, which seems like a lifetime, but many of our operators were just starting to dip their toe in the water of delivery service and starting to get a more aggressive web and social media presence. But this event became a catalyst for accelerating digital transformation. And I think I read a quote, I'm gonna not quote it perfectly, but from I think the CEO of Shopify, and he was talking to some investors and saying that this event has accelerated digital transformation by a decade. And I was struck by the decade part. But then I thought about, Gordon Food Service and our own digital transformation over the last few years. And transforming takes time. And many of the operators that we're talking to and had to do this transformation within 24 hours just to survive. And that's incredible, number one, but it's very difficult, number two. So I wanted to walk through just some learnings in this transformation and talk about the steps, and maybe you're at, maybe not even quite to step one yet, but that's okay. And it's okay to be there because you have to realize that this type of transformation typically takes years. And in the accelerated timetable that you've been handed, you have to give yourself a break and start somewhere. So let's talk about kind of step one. And I picked some restaurants that we work with, some customers. It's not to say that I'm picking favorites or anything, but I thought I'd pick a few, and some of them I frequent, in fact, in my own neighborhood. And here's an example of one. This is a customer of ours, a great customer. They are charming. They have kind of that small format restaurant. They do comfort food really well, kind of a modern diner. It's a place that I like to take my family on a Friday night after the work week and just have a really great scratch cooked kind of comforting meal. It was definitely a place that was meant for that physical presence. And I would go there, and they had a website, and I could even join their wait list on our drive over. So they were already they had a digital presence, but now they had to become even more savvy and accelerate that from being a physical space to more of an online space. So they certainly stood up an ability to order online very quickly. They also started aggressively posting on social media much more than they ever had about their takeout, about their opportunities, about their promotions. So they accelerated that as well. And then they really are trying to keep up to date with regular communication. So if most of our operators get to this space or are here, you've done a really good job. And this is allowing me as a customer to quickly order online to support my favorite establishment, to do it simply. I can see what specials they're running, what foods they're running if I follow them on social media, which I do. And I'm seeing their regular communication. this is a good spot. And for those of you on the line as an operator, and you may be struggling with where to start or where to end, landing yourself here just with the basics and nailing these basics really well. Number one, order online. Number two, have a strong social media presence. And number three, keep up to date, regular communication. You are doing well. This is a good place to be. But if you want to get to that next level, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But I've highlighted a few examples of what this diner is doing really well. You know, they're running promotions on their website on takeout. They've got their menus all accessible for you to see and quickly order. And they're starting to dabble in this kind of contact management here, where they're asking for your email address so that they can keep you up to date and market to you more virtually. But if you want to take it to the next level, here's a customer that completely had to do a 180 overnight, and I applaud their heroic efforts in this area. Another type of customer who's very much meant for that physical in-person, you know, experience, right? It's a steakhouse, right? You want to sit down, you want to have a finely prepared steak, or you want to have a multi-course meal, you want to break bread with friends, family, or business associates. This is an experience that you go to physically experience. And overnight, that opportunity, you know, dried up for this operator. So what they did to take it to the next level, they had the website, they had the social media presence, but they accelerated their efforts even more. And they said, how can we expand our commerce beyond just ordering takeout to go? What else can we do to kind of bring that steakhouse experience to you in your home? And they did, and they created a whole new brand, if you will, a Prime at Home brand. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute, where they are now, you can order your at-home steakhouse meal kit. And it's kind of portioned and slightly prepared, but you do all the work at home. I ordered this a few weeks ago, and I made their truffle macaroni and cheese. I made their bacon Brussels sprouts. I had a shrimp cocktail, and it was delicious. And I enjoyed actually being able to recreate some of their recipes at home. This customer did this in such a short amount of time, and they stood it up. And they're actually doing a pretty robust business now as a result of it. Here's some other examples where they've really taken their both their social media presence and their customer relationship management to the next level. So they're really highlighting this Prime at Home concept, how it works. They're taking orders. Mother's Day is a huge holiday for operators, which I know was hard for many of you. Bodie's did a really nice job. I had placed an order. They got my email from that order. So they started marketing to me. When you're capturing your customers' data from their orders, if they're ordering from you, make sure you've aggressively, you know, have a plan to remarket to them and to bring them back for other occasions like Bodie's is doing here. So that's kind of how you go from kind of level 1 to level 2 and taking it to the next level. It's just being a little bit more deliberate with your business strategy, looking for expanded commerce opportunities, and aggressively marketing on both social media and email to your customers directly. And finally, you know, you can look at some of these operators and the business model they've had, they're doing a complete 180 and a pivot and almost re-emerging as an entirely new brand out of this. Here's a great ramen shop, multi-unit ramen shop in the Chicago area. And they really took this opportunity to go crazy with their brand and what they could do from a both expanded commerce activities, but also with a social media and digital strategy. And basically they've created this whole new kind of experiential, virtual, new brand positioning where, you know, you can order your DIY taco or cocktail kit. You can sake bomb someone. You can send someone, a friend, a sake bomb. And they're even going so far as to, I'm going to click through this in a minute because I want to show you this example. Create cooking classes, right? Wow. You know, this is an operator that its whole business premise was serving food. And now they're serving up cooking classes and they're charging for those, and they will send those ingredients to your house. I think this is a fabulous pivot. Going back here, they're also, of course, nailing the basics. They have their website set up. They have their promotional. They're collecting their customers' data. They're really moving toward these creative areas where how can they add on additional items. They weren't selling red Solo cups and ping pong balls, I don't think, months ago. And here they are, kind of appealing to their customer base, doing virtual beer pong or giving away masks with every order. And they're really emphasizing positivity over all of this, kind of back to what we were talking about earlier on the call, just that brand truth, that positivity, in light of all these challenging times. So this is an example of, I think, a brand that's really taken digital to that mastery level where they're really leveraging the creative avenues they have, the content avenues, and also looking for those expanded commerce opportunities to drive in repeat or new purchasers that might have never experienced their brand before.
I love that, Kelly. And I love that example as well, that we're seeing so many operators that maybe didn't have a really strong digital footprint before, really develop that and hone in on what makes their brand. And I love it. So question for you about the back end of social media and the back end of some of this stuff. So I know we talked about the front side of it. How can operators start taking a look at some of the data that comes through when they do these campaigns? I know, for example, Google Analytics, when you do it for your website, that's a rabbit hole that I could spend days on. So what's a good place for folks to start?
Well, I hate to say it, for those of you on the line that would rather be in the kitchen, preparing something, you're going to have to become more digitally enabled, more digitally savvy, and you're going to have to pay attention to data. In this digitally transformed space, data is your friend. It gives you information about who to target, how to go after certain customers. Things that you might not know are actually working for you well that you need to kind of drill into more. And so website data, from a basic Square site or a Shopify site, a lot of analytics packages just come right out of the box, and they're very straightforward. They don't require a data scientist degree to understand where your traffic is coming from, which hours of the day, which geographies. That will help you do better, right? So pay attention to data, understand what's working. If you're sending out emails and no one's opening them, or they're opening certain ones, it's time to tweak the subject line. It's time to create a rich offer. Similarly with social media, there is a lot of organic strategy out there. It just means you can just put stuff on your Instagram, but it is still a pay-to-play world today, and you're not going to be able to target the folks that you want to target or run the promotions you want to run without putting some dollars. They don't have to be significant, but some dollars behind promotional advertising. Social media, that is really its power, is to go after and target certain audiences. But you have to know who your audience is. You have to know who those folks are. Otherwise, you're wasting money on the wrong audience, right? So I don't want to see a Matchbox Diner ad if I live on, near the lakeshore. They're a Grand Rapids restaurant. They should be a narrow target and really focused on those customers that are closest to them that will drive the most business for them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Really great point. Okay, so I'm going to kind of use some of the Q&A that's coming through here, as well as some other questions that we had. This is a good one. How often is too often when marketing to your customers? Whoever wants to chime in on that one. Kelly, maybe.
You know what? I could probably take that.
Yeah.
This is really tough. You have to watch your data. Just kind of, if you're seeing unsubscribes or open rates go down, or things diminish in the data side, you are probably, email is always a good canary in the coal mine. You're probably marketing too much. Social media is a little more passive way to kind of control delivery. Facebook tends to optimize delivery and send, if you're paying for an ad, to that frequency that's right. So there's some helpful governors in place from some of these social media platforms. But I would say right now, we're even breaking some of our own rules at Gordon Food Service about how often we're marketing. We're ramping it up, and it's because we have to, and we have a lot to say, and now is the time to communicate. I think as things kind of stabilize, there's going to be a sense of fatigue that starts to happen again, and you're going to want to just kind of dial it back a little bit more. But use social media, use advertising, email selectively, but be there aggressively on all channels as much as you can right now.
Yeah.
And Kelly, if I can just add to that really quickly, I think there's a way to understand what you're messaging, and just because you're talking a lot doesn't mean that you're messaging too much. It might be what you're talking about that's throwing people off. So we made a recommendation to a lot of our clients right now to take a look at you can only post about 1 week ahead in this environment, but take a look at the next 2 weeks of what you're going to say, and go through and look at the type of content and label your type of content. Are you constantly throwing out promotions every single day? It's probably too much. Dial it back on the promotions a little bit and add more quizzes, add more details about who you are as a brand, showcase your employees. So take a step back. If you're going to communicate more, to Kelly's point, everyone is communicating more. There's more people online. There's more people to see your content. Don't worry about that. But what you should worry about is the sameness that you're going out there with. Don't become a discount brand. Make sure that you stay true to who you are and use different ways to communicate, use different voices as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Melissa, from an engagement standpoint and the various ways that we engage, which is why I also love the Furious Spoon example that you gave, Kelly, and all the different interesting ways that they're engaging with folks right now. Melissa, I'm going to go back to you actually for this question. What sort of things are you seeing on digital channels that you wouldn't recommend operators repeat? So one of the things that came to mind for me was in our prep call, you mentioned the hashtag COVID-19, which I actually didn't know that you shouldn't be using unless it's really only for emergency personnel. So what types of things can, best practices here, some tips for the operators today?
Yeah, that's a good point. So a lot of people are scared out there, and the information that they want to get, they're coming from certain channels. So making sure that you don't jump into those streams of communication that don't relate to your brand just because something is spiking. And if you're watching conversations are going up and you want to be a part of that, it may not be right for you. So don't try to just jump on anything that's spiking right now. Be very cognizant of which spikes you want to jump on, or just kind of keep to the communication. Don't even pay attention to some of those spikes at this point. Keep steady. Right now, it's so important for you to protect your brand and not use hashtags that you normally wouldn't use. Playing off of that as well, when people are talking about things that don't fit into your universe, let them talk and just listen. This is a huge learning opportunity for all of us right now. And the more we can listen, the better off we're going to be in a couple of months, because we'll be more prepared to take action and to open up and to be in conversations again. So don't be afraid to not jump into every conversation, sit back and listen.
Yeah, so important as you think through your strategy and the long-term goals that you have here. Good question that came through here. Kelly, is text marketing a smart way to reach consumers?
It is. It's very smart. But it is the most invasive and the most personal. So think about email and multiply it by 10, right? So email, you're kind of like, all right, enough emails. If you're starting to get a text message a day from a brand, you may start to say, okay, that's too much. You're crossing a line. So one thing that works really well is if you have an app, you can run push notifications through there if they're allowed. But the second thing is with customer data. So having that good customer data, that CRM, if you will, that customer relationship management with their email, their text, just know what to send out as a text. It better be probably a strong promotion. It shouldn't be like hey, we're just hanging out today, making pizza. If I'm going to let you into my text, you better be giving me something good for my generosity to you using my cell phone number. That said, it's very attention grabbing. So if you're running an aggressive promotion or you want to just drive foot traffic or orders, I do think it's a very, very strong way to grab attention and to get business.
Yeah. Treat carefully. White glove service
Yes.
when it comes to
Yes.
texting campaigns, right?
Yes. Powerful, but like electricity, it could burn you, right? Very powerful.
I like that. Okay, so as we're talking about all this stuff, Lisa, I'm gonna direct this question to you. What's a cost-effective way for operators to continue to monitor what matters to their customers and some of the things that they're hearing out there? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So important right now. I think there's a lot of public sentiment out there. So similar to our microsite, like stay in tune with what's out there, look and see if there's something that's specific to your region, but also to like what Melissa said, listen to your customers, take every opportunity to do that. And like, there's a lot of opportunities in when they're calling, when they're picking up orders, any of those, like just listen to what they're saying, what they're feeling, and even be brave enough to ask them questions like, hey, have you seen anybody else doing something really great out there that I should be aware of? Because there are really good success stories and really good things, and they're going to be the ones that can help you and tell you. So again, I think it's just use those verbal interactions as much as you can, and continue to understand and keep a pulse on your core customers.
Yeah, really good point. Okay, we're going to do a couple more questions here before we wrap up. This is a really good one. This one's always gets me though. How do you suggest a business responds to negative comments that they receive on a post? And then it kind of ties into the second one of, should I respond to every comment I receive on my social media post? So Kelly and Melissa, I'm going to let you guys take that one.
It's funny, I just gave a presentation on this yesterday to a local economic development group for their operators. And I talked about how social media can be very powerful from being a canary in the coal mine for highlighting potential issues that might come up and might become more disruptive, potential crisis. And then it can be trolling, right? And it can create an emotional response in you as the owner of the business that is not going to be healthy or productive for you. And it's difficult to discern at first, I think, whether it's a troll or it's a helpful issue being highlighted. But the best thing you can do if it's a complaint or a comment, I would recommend taking it offline, right? So, hey, Melissa, thank you for your comment. Would you mind, DMing me, or I'll private message you, or email me at this. I would like to know more. So just, again, listen, be open, but take it offline. And then anyone else on that comment trail can see that you're responsive, you're handling it. Just remember, anything you say on a private channel, though, especially if it's a trolling type person, they could screenshot that and put it back publicly. So just be mindful that nothing is private. Typically, if you can resolve it within just a very simple exchange of customer service, like, oh, I'm sorry your order was wrong. Oh, I'm sorry your food was cold, or I would love to, and then try to make it right? Just the basic tenets of customer service apply in this channel. But if it's someone that's just aggressively out for your brand, respond once, do the right thing, and then you're going to have to ignore it. There is no winning with trolls. You're going to want to win. You're going to want to get that last word inside on you, and this is your business, right? And this person is attacking you, and how dare they, and what's their problem? Do not, you're never going to win. That's actually the emotional response they want from you. They want to bait you a little bit. They want to bring it out of you. Stay calm, take a deep breath. Be calm, cool, and collected in your response. Do the basics. And then a lot of times you'll have troll fighters come in to your rescue that are your fans anyways. We see this all the time in our business. People will come in and say, I'm just fine accessing the website, or I saw that, you know, and any kind of complaint, you know, people tend to come to your rescue. So let them do that for you and stay back out of the fray. Just back out, stay mature, stay calm, cool, and collected in this one. So
that's good advice. Resist the urge. If you wouldn't want it on the cover of a front page of a newspaper, you shouldn't put it online. Am I right?
no. And they will do everything they can to get you to respond in a way that is validating of their negative perception anyway. So
yeah,
I think that's such a great question and great response. One thing that we've been helping other clients do as well is there's new people on the channels. People are starting to jump into social. So you have some people who maybe are not as experienced being community managers. So we've been putting together how-tos for things like this. So as an owner or an operator of your company, it's really helpful to just take a few hours or get some advice on what are those guidelines to do and not to do, with examples to give to those community managers, or maybe even to remind yourself when you're in the channels to, you know, this is on my don't do it, don't respond unless it's this. So just writing little guidebooks for things specifically like this are very helpful at a time like this.
Yeah, really good point. And we also have a how-to guide on the eat.news website for folks that I didn't mention in the beginning, but it's our digital marketing and communications how-to guide. So there's a lot more examples in there, and we comb through a lot of this in much more detail. And I will also send the link around that too in the follow-up email. This is a good question. What radius do you recommend as far as targeted campaign social media? 2 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles? This is kind of tricky. I always think I'm in the middle of the city of Chicago, and 2 miles is really far if you live in a major metropolitan city, but maybe not if you're out in the suburban area or more rural area. So what do you recommend, Kelly?
yeah, it is a tricky question, right? It very much depends on where you live and where you draw from. So I guess first, pre-COVID, who are you drawing in? Where were they coming from, right? Don't forget that you have that data from the time before. There's the time now and then there's the time before, and it feels very different. But you probably knew as an owner where you were drawing from. The other thing, it's not just radius. Some of it is, there are other demographics and other targeting. Facebook or Instagram offer a plethora of opportunities to target. So you can target, people who already like your business. Well, let's just remind them more often that you're there, right? That you need their support. That's a good place to start as a targeting option. There are also opportunities to target certain interests and, geographies or areas of like if they're vegetarians or, whatever. There's a plethora of ways to target on social media beyond just geography. So do remember, who were you drawing in before? Are there ways to kind of create additional lookalike audiences to expand your scope? But that's always a good place to start. And then don't be afraid to experiment. So, you can always run an ad, see if it's pulling in people, maybe expand it out, try a few other things. But again, pay attention to the data. Don't just set it and forget it. Like, see how it's doing, how it's performing, and if it's driving the desired action that you want it to drive.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Kelly. Okay, so my final question to the panel, since I work for Relish Works and we're all about exploring the future of the industry, what is one restaurant engagement trend, and you guys can all answer this, that you're seeing on social media or digital marketing in general right now that you think is going to stick even post reemergence and once all the dust really settles around this crisis? Lisa, you want to start with you?
Sure, I'll start. So for me, I think it's going to be this, the convenience that people are experiencing today. So the idea that they can go to a restaurant and get food and have it brought directly out to their car. And it's very contactless. They can pay digitally. They can, not even have to go inside. And I think that the idea of convenience is really going to change.
Yeah. So true. Kelly, what's yours?
We're not putting this digital back in this toothpaste back in the tube. It's here now.
Yeah.
And it's fast. And it's, like I said, the transformation has been accelerated by years, if not a decade. And so unfortunately, this is the world we all have to get very, very, very comfortable with very quickly. And it can be done, and just start. That's the best thing I can say is just start and get to that step one. Just get there first, and then the rest can come later.
Yeah. Melissa?
I think everyone should send sake bombs to each other from now on.
That's a great
so
joke.
fun.
Yeah. TGIF.
Yes. Responsiveness. Responsiveness is going to be expected from here on out. People were not updating their hours previously. They weren't going into all of their different communication points and providing information on who they were and how they managed. But people want to trust that you're going to be there whenever they need you to be there. And so that responsiveness is not going to go away. You've got to monitor, you've got to listen, you've got to respond and engage. It's a two-way relationship. Like I said in the beginning, it's about making your brand more human. And the best way to do that is to exchange communications on a timely manner. So responsiveness is not going to go away.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all of you. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us today. Special round of applause for our panelists. If we were in an audience, you'd hear all the clapping right now. I will do it for you. A recording of this is going to be on eat.news. And again, it's also going to be in the Relishworks YouTube channel. Thank you so much to Gordon Food Service for helping us pull this together today. Also head to GFS website for more information. They've got great tips on recipes, takeaway items, virtual cooking classes, all of the whole bang. So, thank you so much, and stay tuned, sign up, and there'll be more of these webinars in the future. Take care, everybody. Have a nice weekend.